So the title for this panel is Take on the World. Should startups be looking overseas for the next big growth opportunity? Obviously, at the moment, things are in a state of flux. There's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a very sort of rapidly changing investment landscape. AI, defense tech as well, is sort of on the minds of investors and of founders as well. And geopolitics is definitely changing the name of the game when it comes to fundraising. We're not going to dwell too much on those, but what we are going to think about is any challenges and pain points that founders might encounter when they're looking for their next big growth opportunity, whether that's in the domestic market or overseas. And to help me do that, I am delighted to welcome our wonderful panel. And I'm just going to hand over to them to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start off with Aaron.
Hello, this is working. Hi, yeah, my name's Aaron. I am Scottish, so apologies if you can't understand me. I currently work for SeedLegals and have worked within the fundraising industry for around sort of 3 or 4 years in numerous different firms.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Robert. I'm from a company called Evari. I'm one of the founding members. We're an insurtech, so we provide core technology and data processing technology to insurers and brokers. And now's a pretty exciting time for us. We've actually got another product we're about to launch as well called MicroStraight, which is a agentic AI platform.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Dimitri. I'm running a company called Gradient Labs here in London. We automate any type of manual repetitive work for financial services and customer support in particular, with AI agents as well. Prior to that, my background is in banking. So I was probably one of the first 30 employees at Monzo and stuck around for the next 7, 8 years, kind of building the bank. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Amy. I work in product at Wise. I've been here for about 4.5 years and I look after our business account. So I'm on the panel, but really I'm here for all of your feedback about the account, whether you use it or you're thinking about using it. So please find me after and share your thoughts.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks very much. I think we might need the mic down this end. So I think we're going to kick off with a broad question about international expansion and whether startups should be thinking about it right now. Does uncertainty equal opportunity, or should people sort of be sitting and waiting to see how things pan out? And I'm going to start with you, Aaron.
Depends who you speak to, I guess, and kind of, I think broadly uncertainty. Yeah, like it's opportunity at the end of the day, right? But it does depend on multiple different factors such as sector, where you're at in your life cycle as well as a company. But overall, yeah, I would say uncertainty uncovers a lot of opportunity, whether that's in the core market that you are operating in or also elsewhere as well, right? So it's not kind of a rule of thumb where it's wait until you mature in your current market before you go out and expand. It's where the opportunity lies for you. And when you see that opportunity, are you in a position that you can really pounce on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that does depend on your stage of maturity, but also like what your product offering is and whether it is translatable into other markets. And for you, Robert, how have you found that in terms of scaling and looking overseas to new markets for growth opportunities?
Well, we actually originally started as an Australian business, and 7 years ago we flipped over to the UK. And like in terms of uncertainty, there's always going to be something happening. It is a particularly fragile time geopolitically at the moment. But I think at the end of the day, if you've got the right products and you've got a customer market and you're in that stage where you're ready to look to expand, then I think you'd have to look at just handling things the best you can at that point in time. So yeah, we made the flip from Australia over to the UK, and in hindsight, it was a good decision.
And what was the driving force behind that decision?
Principally because in InsurTech, at the time we're selling insurance as well, and the Australian market's only so large. We were spending a lot of time here. The global hub for insurance really is in London, and we decided we wanted to come over here, and we started serving customers in the US as well for some of our platform technology. And for practical reasons, it was just made a lot of sense to be here. And then that's given us the ability to access Europe as well as the US, or from here is a lot easier than being just in Australia.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to ask a question for Dimitri now. So when should startups, what stage of your maturity should you start thinking about international expansion? Is this something that you should be planning from day one? Should it be built into kind of the roadmap, or is it something that comes when you just hit a kind of inflection point?
Yeah, well, I think that's probably depend what type of business you're running. I mean, we're a B2B business, obviously, right? So, and in B2B, you can't expand simultaneously everywhere compared to, like, I don't know, a note taker, AI note taker and B2C segment, right? So in our case, we're really building out the presence in the UK. It really kind of shows once you have a couple of really good logos on your website, and that's when the market traction happens. And that's kind of what you need as a starting point. And now when we're looking abroad to the US, actually those 3 logos, 4 logos, 5 logos in the UK pretty much don't matter. Nobody really cares about those in the UK, in the US, and you start from scratch. And so I think if you are in B2B, probably you should focus on some region first to get the initial traction. And B2C depends on how complex your product is. If you're building a bank, speaking from experience, it's very difficult to expand overseas. Like, it's a big endeavor, but if you're building an AI note taker, it probably makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So is it a scalable product? How does the subscription model work? If you're a bank, obviously lots of regulatory and compliance considerations as well, which I'm sure you deal with a lot, Amy, scaling wise.
Yeah, so I think before you're worrying about should I move into the US or should I move into Europe, you should worry about whether any customers actually want your feature. I think you can plan for world domination and forget to actually build something which solves anyone's problems. But assuming that you have, I would start to think from day one where your product would break if you try and scale it overseas. So there's some really basic things like the copy in your product. If it's back-end driven, it will handle translations much better than if you've hard-coded it on the front end and then you have to go through and unpick it. And think about your KYC flows, you know, you're building them for one region, but as soon as you move into another, you're going to have more requirements. So how can you build something where you can elegantly scale? And then, of course, I have to mention finance. So you'll probably open your first account and it will be Monzo or it will be Barclays. But then as soon as you want to handle your US raise, you'll need like US local account details for that. So start thinking even from day one, which financial products you'll use that will allow you to operate in multiple currencies. Otherwise, what we see a lot of customers coming to us for is because their finance team have a Barclays login, a Deutsche Bank login, and a Wells Fargo login, and they're managing their currencies across all 3 platforms. And as CEO, you might not notice that, but that's going to cause a lot of pain for your finance team. So think about a product which will allow you to move into multiple regions with a single login, will just make your life so much easier in the long run.
Right. Okay. So thinking about scalability from day one, basically,
Exactly, yeah.
And controlling costs as well.
Yes.
That can also be a benefit. So what role does investment and where you're looking to raise investment play when you're scaling globally? Can it be an advantage to look to other markets? Initially, we'll start off with Rob, and then we'll go to Aaron.
Okay. What role does the market play in investment? Well, I think it depends on, you know, obviously the technology you're in. The US is a market from investment. If you've walked up Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley, it's just a completely different world over there. So, yeah, look, I think if you are looking to grow into a particular region, then there's some reasons to go and take money from those regions as well. So one of the reasons you need money is to obviously access the higher cost of entry to some of those markets. We were chatting earlier around sort of the salary costs in the US, for example, relative to London. There's a big differential there. But even beyond that, if you're getting investment locally in the US, if you wanted to expand to the US, well, then you get investors who understand that market. They can help you. I actually think that's a really important factor. And it was for us when we came over to the UK. We wanted to go and look at, well, what UK investors are, because they're going to help us expand in this market when we got here.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the guidance and the kind of value add beyond just the initial investment.
Cash is important, but you look for a smart investor, it's going to give you a lot more as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, from your perspective, does it matter where you're looking to raise investment?
Yeah, like it 100% does matter where you're looking to raise investment. I think it's 100% true that where you see your product going into, or is it on your roadmap, like going out and sourcing these investors as well, who are going to be potential advisors to the business as well in that market. But we've just say recently, around 6 months ago or so, have opened an office in New York, and speaking to early stage founders, for us anyway, it was a bit of like a breath of fresh air, because I think as much as sort of UK founders are struggling regarding the fundraising environment right now, US founders are having the exact same over there. So it was a bit of a breath of fresh air to say that it is globally. Now, obviously, it's just a little bit more at scale, right? Where it's higher valuations. Instead of raising potentially £1 million here, they're raising $2 million in the US. So it's just sort of different numbers, but the struggles are the exact same ultimately. So it is important later stage, early stage, like what market are you playing in? And ultimately that's the investors that you should be sourcing out from there.
Absolutely. And I guess the question that everyone is asking at the moment, any conference you go to, any webinar you watch, they're all talking about these sort of really hot industries. Obviously, AI is massive. Which markets or kind of verticals are posing are presenting the biggest opportunities for startups today? Do you think that sort of fintech is something which is becoming a bit more kind of bedded in, and now we're looking at AI and whatever comes in the next hype cycle? Do you actually think that sort of the opportunity is there, or do you think that this is going to sort of be a cycle which will then resolve itself and move on to something else? And for that, I'd like to ask Dimitri.
Oh, harder to, I mean, obviously we are an AI native company, but working for fintechs. So we kind of tried to pick the best of both worlds. And I don't know, I have been at Amsterdam Money 2020, and it is as lively as ever, I would say. So I don't see it kind of slowing down with amazing attendance there. But obviously in AI, that's where the hype cycle is happening. The companies who are literally raising rounds in a week type of thing. So a lot of hype there. And in terms of the markets, I think they're obviously the obvious choices like UK, if you're here, US, because English speaking. But in the AI space, AI combined with fintech, Saudi Arabia seems to be on fire for whatever reason. So it seems like lots of people from here trying to build connections very, very quickly there, because the banks are rapidly adopting AI and everyone sensing an opportunity. So this is just like a random example, anecdotal example, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously everyone's talking about AI, but there are so many different types of AI. And then I think it's the job of like the investors and the VCs at the moment to try and pass through what's going to add value to end customers and what sort of represents something that you tack on just because it's AI. And Rob, I'd be interested to hear from you about sort of how that works, obviously building a new AI venture.
Yeah, maybe just touch on is funding going to AI? That's certainly what we're hearing, talking to investors and other founders. And I was chatting to somebody last week. They raised a huge Series A round off the back of a platform for AI as well. So I think it's definitely going there. From our side, so we are launching a platform for running agentic AI. Part of our decisioning around the product strategy was to align to that. Truthfully, we'll find out how easy it is to go and raise money as we're about to go and start raising at the moment.
Brilliant. Okay, well, good luck with that. But it sounds like there's a lot of investors very, very interested in hearing about sort of new applications for AI.
There are, and I think there's different segments of it in terms of where we're going, and certainly the agentic AI space is, I'm sure across all industries, any conferences you're going to, that's where the discussion is. And it does seem to be that's where the rubber's hitting the road. So we're seeing where you're hearing and seeing money going into that direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fingers crossed anyway.
Yeah. And how can founders determine, like, sorry, apologies. We've had a few issues with our microphones, which make us sound a bit like Daleks, but we are addressing it. How can founders determine which markets make the most sense for their startup? Do you start off with a kind of market entry strategy and go from there? Or is it about going out and talking to customers? Should that be the priority?
Yeah, 100% talk to customers. Like, try actually understand if it is a problem that needs solving, I guess. And ultimately, no matter if it's B2B or B2C, like, you're still selling to somebody or a business ultimately. So understanding if there's a need for it is 100% the most important thing. And then, yeah, I guess the market is a difficult one ultimately, because it's never been easier for businesses now to expand globally, like especially now with AI involved, it's just going to become a lot quicker and a lot more scalable. But from an early stage, it's usually where you are and ultimately where you live is mainly going to be the market that you play in. And then once you start to mature in that market, then naturally you'll start to expand out, etc.
Yeah. And there are lots of challenges that come with that. It's not just figuring out, whether the US is a good market to move to. It's about sort of some of the issues that you guys mentioned. It's, building a team. It's hiring staff, contractors. Do you need a physical presence there or can you operate remotely? Lots of different considerations. And one of those is something that we spend a lot of time thinking about here at Wise, which is managing sort of the cost of everything and FX risk. There's obviously we've seen such a lot of dollar volatility over the last 6 months. We've seen it in all of our transactions for personal and business customers. And it's something that you don't tend to think about when you're first starting out in a business, but it's something that over time does become a challenge, particularly if you're raising funds and you start to pay people, suppliers and contractors in different currencies. So how can startups think about sort of managing that volatility? And Amy, how do we think about that at Wise?
Yeah, as you mentioned, we're definitely seeing this volatility changing businesses' behavior, and we're seeing a lot more activity in our major currencies, so USD, Euro, and GBP. I think the main thing you want to do is avoid having to exchange unless you're really ready to. And I was actually speaking to Dimitri about this because congratulations, just raised your first fund round, and that was in USD. And Dimitri had Monzo account, us both being ex-Monzo, I completely understand. But actually, when you're raising USD, what you want is to be able to receive that USD as USD, not be forced to exchange to get your money in GBP. And then you can hold that USD and kind of convert as and when you need it or when the rate is good. And I think that's kind of the beauty of Wise is you can open with GBP, you can get your local account details and operate as a UK business. But as soon as you need USD, it's a click of a button. You have US local account details. You can get your hopefully millions in USD, and then you can hold it and exchange when the rate's looking good. And we have a few tricks and tools for this. So one is auto conversion. So you just set whichever rate you'd be happy to convert at and how much. And then we'll just do the conversion when that rate hits, which really takes the pressure off of you having to be watching that rate when you have 1,000 other things to do. And we'll just handle those conversions for you. So yeah, it's really thinking about how you can just hold on to your money until it's a good time for you to exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's also a lot of thinking we do about how we can help founders and startup teams to protect their runway and to extend their runway as well. We've launched a product called Interest, which allows you to earn a return on USD, Euro and GBP. It's really competitive and it's instant access. And extending your runway is definitely something, when you are kind of carefully managing that investment, something that you should definitely be thinking about. Aaron, when SeedLegals are speaking to companies who are in the process of raising funds, what kind of advice do you give them in terms of extending and protecting that investment and spending it wisely as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much advice that obviously we give and it can sort of like go on, but I guess sort of, yeah, like runway is the most important thing, right? When you've just raised funds, especially if it's kind of for more institutional firms, they're not wanting to see a burn rate of X, they're wanting to see a burn rate of Y and really sort of protecting that. And as well, I think it's more important than ever as well now that runway is and should be at the forefront of your mind from a financial perspective, because yeah, there is a lot of uncertainty. So it's kind of, yeah, if the music does stop, you want to be protected ultimately as much as you can be. So it's not so much that we give advice regarding that, but it's just kind of understanding, well, if you are looking at doing your first funding round, okay, in our experience, it may take X amount of time. Do you have the runway to actually last that amount of time as well? And then as they go through that fundraise, hoping that they know, okay, if we're going for a bigger fundraise, we know already that it's taken this amount of time to raise £1 million, and then we're going for £4 million. It's going to take that little bit longer as well.
Mm-hmm.
To sort of probably touch on Wise as well. I think now that cross-border investments are starting to become more and more popular as well, the US has got a lot of yeah, the US investors are quite attracted to UK startups at the minute. So even just from a currency perspective, if you're talking about millions and millions of dollars getting invested, you could be talking about thousands, if not tens of thousands of fees, transaction fees that just disappear overnight without you even knowing that as well. So it's kind of having all these little add-ons such as Wise to understand where can we save, where can we be as most cost effective as possible so that we can just extend that runway a little bit longer for a rainy day, just in case.
Yeah, amazing. You won't believe this, but we actually didn't plan these answers. So let's talk about mistakes that we've made and things that people can learn about what you do differently now. So Robert, I want to start with you. What's a mistake that you have made on your expansion journey that you'd like to share with us, and what would you do differently?
I'm not sure I think about it as a mistake necessarily, but I certainly think when we first came over to the UK, we were a little naive in terms of all of the things that we had to be aware of, even sort of different tax rules and employment rules and treatments, etc. One of the key learnings I think would be getting local support really helps. Somebody in Australia trying to manage a UK tax regime doesn't really work very well. We actually have a Wise account, wasn't paid to be here, but we do. And that's given us the ability to transfer money easily. So we use that for moving money around. We've got, I think, 7 different companies in the group, so we're moving money around constantly. One thing you didn't mention, Amy, that actually has been really helpful for us as well is it gives us the ability to have a local bank account when we're operating across borders. So we actually don't have a team in the US. We've decided not to do that as yet. But we have a US present with a US bank account, thanks to Wise, so that our US customers pay in USD into that account, and then we make the choice in terms of when we move that money around.
Awesome. So you didn't even have to set up a US entity, essentially?
No, we don't have a US entity at all,
Right.
no, but we have a US bank account and a US address, and we deal with large enterprise customers like insurers, and they needed that, and the due diligence around that means that we can get paid over there, and we just choose when we bring that money across.
Got it. And I guess, yeah, the local kind of advisors, that's accountants, lawyers.
Accountants and legal professionals who understand the area. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess in terms of market entry, Dimitri, have you done much thinking for your current venture on mistakes that you might have made along the way?
Yeah,
Or...
it's early days, but
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's useful to talk about surprises. US salaries was the biggest hard pill to swallow. You just need to double whatever you pay in the UK, and it's just what it is. That was certainly not on the budget, unfortunately. Another thing, we did raise in dollars, but I have actually a finance background, so I kind of understand FX volatility, but it did caught us by surprise. So if for every 10 millions you raise, you lose $1 million if the FX goes up and down by 10%. Since the beginning of the year, it changed way more than 10%. So you can imagine if all your outgoings is in pounds, but you raised and hold the balance in dollars, you have a bit of a problem there. Yeah, I think those are kind of the first hard things that we discover the hard way. I'm sure we will make lots of mistakes along the way. Yeah.
Sounds like you're doing everything right at the moment, though. And Amy, how has Wise navigated building a product and a team that can scale globally? Obviously, we've got 16 million customers now. But yeah, how do we scale fast, and what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, so the structure of the Wise product teams is that we have global teams. So I'm, for example, in a global team which builds our business account, and they build the foundations that all customers will see. And then we have local teams in regions who go really deep into understanding the customer problems in those regions and trying to figure out what is it that customers in specific countries expect. So, for example, in the UK, we think Apple Pay is like pretty cool. It's very effective. And you go to Singapore and you try and pay, and it's all QR codes. So in Singapore, everyone's scanning a QR code to pay. So Apple Pay just goes out the window. And, you know, while I'd love Christo to fly me to every country that we operate in so I can learn these things for myself, that doesn't really scale. So we have local teams who speak to our customers and really understand what they need. And then the second thing that we have is that the teams are very autonomous. So the roadmap doesn't come top down where you have a CEO in one country telling all the teams across the world what to build. The teams are really empowered to understand customer problems and build a roadmap around that. And so the top priority problems really come through. I think the challenge is we have, I don't know how many offices now, but it's in the tens
Yeah.
all around the world. So it's how do you create a coordinated strategy with teams building for very specific local problems? I don't think that's something that we're always great at. I think one thing that really helps, surprisingly, is a big summer party that we throw in Estonia every year. So the whole company gets together. I think we must be about 6,000 now. We have a, yeah, I know it's big. And we have a big conference, which we call Mission Days, where we really talk through what are the key problems that we want to solve, where are we going as a company. And then we have things like product days where all the PMs get together. And it's just a chance to hear what are other people building? Where are the things that maybe we're duplicating effort? Where are the things that we need other people's help? And just that bringing people together is so worth the investment, because it just helps you rub along better, and it also helps you have those serendipitous moments where you realize, oh, actually, we can help each other out. So yeah, I don't know how scalable this is, but a big summer party in Estonia, I would highly recommend. It's great fun, and it's actually very, very effective for building a good product as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So, I mean, Aaron, very excitingly, you mentioned that SeedLegals has just expanded to the US. You've been there for about 6 months, and your CEO Anthony has a base out there and has been building out almost like SeedLegals from scratch again. What's been the main difference between scaling in the UK and the US? And what new opportunities are you hoping to find there?
Yeah, I'm definitely not the right person to answer this. So when I knew about this question, I did text our founder, Anthony, ultimately around sort of how he would answer it. And it was kind of going back to around founders kind of always face the same problems in the UK and the same in the US. And it's kind of the exact same. It is really sort of building from scratch, ultimately, like building the brand, going out and really, I mean, to be fair, from Anthony's perspective, it's replicating what we've done in the UK and just doing it out in the US ultimately and scaling that way. Anthony, our founder, loves to go to events as well. So he is definitely gutted to not be here, but he is at another event in New York right now that he's enjoying. So it is, yeah, it's very much kind of just replicating how you scaled in your core first market and doing that elsewhere as well. And kind of obviously businesses will do deep due diligence before going into new markets. So obviously that's already been kind of done, etc. But it's more speaking to as many people as well and understanding, is there going to be a difference in product offering, or is it actually that they need this product that they needed in the UK, etc. And just sort of understanding how to scale that and speaking to as many people as possible, specifically those who are going to be your customers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a wild card question, which hopefully won't be too much of an unexpected one. But is it important to meet people, as in investors, founders, before you walk in for that pitch? Like, do you need a pre-existing relationship there? Or do you think that on the strength of your idea and your pitch, you should be able to win them over? Robert, can I ask you that question?
Do you need to meet them? No, you don't need to meet them, because that would be pretty impossible to try and do that always. But I think the general advice is you need to try and not just hit them fresh, right? So ideally you have a connection to them through somebody else. So there's something you can work up from there.
Brilliant. Okay.
Obviously, if you can meet them, fantastic, but not always feasible.
Okay. And Dimitri, from your perspective, do you think you need sort of a pre-existing relationship, or do you think that you can go in there and just wow them with your pitch deck?
I would say definitely helps. If I think about our latest round, we did have lined up a bunch of pre-existing relationships, and those are the ones who moved with the biggest convictions and the fastest. And then the people who are new, they were just too slow. They might have been interested, but they're just not convinced as the others, and they just moved too slowly. In the end, only those people moved ahead that I knew previously. So yeah, for me, the answer would be definitely.
Okay. And the reason I set that up was because I think everyone should take the opportunity to meet as many people as they can this evening, to make valuable connections and to get talking about some of the issues that we've discussed here today, but also just to sort of take the opportunity to get to know people that you wouldn't normally encounter. And we hope that you take the opportunity to do that. And we're very, very glad that you've taken the time to join us this evening. So just want to say thank you so much to all of our panelists. Great speakers, hopefully some really good insights there for you as well. And we look forward to welcoming you back to another Business and SeedLegals event very soon. Thank you.